Circles. Click. Circle. next time. Welcome to us. Click the circles.
Now it's too late.
Welcome to us. Click the Welcome to us. Click the circles. To the beat. Circles. Click. Circles. Click.
Yeah. Ay, la 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 la. 一人大丈夫さ、ほら赤い水ウォーキングダウン。着替えめんどくさいな、朝飯アイスでいいや。ずっと失ったまま、私はまだ君を恨んでいるから。でも気になってあなたのインスタ見ちゃうの。見れな私を殺したいよ。やっぱ魅力があったのかな、悪いとこだらけ孫の気づいたのかな。もう置いてかないで私だけ、自分勝手で本当にごめんね。悔しくはないけど、やっぱ
Tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin imeskellä sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin kosketella 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 sinun suklaapalleja. Suklaapalleja, suklaapalleja. Tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin imeskellä sinun suklaapalleja. Hoi 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 ja la la la. Rum 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 rum. Tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin imeskellä sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja, tahtoisin kosketella sinun suklaapalleja.
That's what you are. Be my coffee table and I'll be your sofa. Unbelievable, so near yet so far. Please be the man, the cable to my cable car. You blossom like a flower. I'm so stunned like the devil. My God, you are unbelievable. Unbelievable. just what you are. Come be my coffee table, and I'll be your sofa. Unbelievable, so near yet so far. Please be the magic cable to my cable car. You blossom like a flower, I'm so stunned like a vegetable. My girl, you are unbelievable.
Your love, mama. You clean my coffee table and my big sofa. Unconditional, your love so far. You bring me to Sentosa on a cable car. You force me to eat vegetable, my mama. Your love conditional. Conditional, your love, mama. You clean my coffee table and my bigger sofa. Your love so far. You bring me to Sentosa on a cable car. I never buy you flower. You force me to eat vegetable, my mama. Your love conditional.
Screaming for your love, are you leaving, coming back? I don't wanna fight like this any fucking more. I just want you to feel adored. I would drop everything, yeah, just for you. You're so perfect, I want you forever. Please stay here forever. You're so perfect, you're so worth it. I just want you.
Swear I fucking miss you. It's been a few months since we last talked. I don't know if you miss me. I've been stuck in my head every day. I can't get out cause I don't know what to say. Remember last July, you went out and lied to my face and made me feel denied. Don't know what I did, but it was my fault. That's what you said. Leave me down on the dance floor. I can't pick up myself no more. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. I leave me down on the dance floor. I can't pick up myself no more. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. I need you tonight. I don't wanna go cry for one night. I just want a normal life. I just wanna be alright. I don't wanna kill myself. I just wanna fix my health. Fucking hate this loneliness. Never felt. Leave me down on the dance floor. I can't pick up myself no more. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. I leave me down on the dance floor. I can't pick up myself no more. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. I leave me down on the dance floor. I can't pick up myself no more. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this.
You're so violent. Can we stop fighting? For once, I'm tired. I know you're tired. I'm still waiting for you, baby. I don't understand. I don't have a plan. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm still waiting for you, baby. I don't understand. I don't understand, baby. You're so violent. Can we stop fighting? For once, I'm tired. I know you're tired.
I'm still waiting for you, baby. I know you weren't getting me like you were. I know sometimes it gets hard. I said sometimes it's like that. You think me cash out, baby. I wasn't nobody, now I'm always wrong. I wasn't nobody, now I'm with somebody. I never knew that. I had nobody. Got cash, got key, got parties. You're so fucking nice, be my future wife. Look me in the eyes, please don't ever lie. It hurts more than you think it does. I can tell you've had enough of this fucking torture that we call a life. Let's go kill our exes, die inside the mosh pit, jump off of a building. I know that you want it, buy you a new piercing and a studded bell. I just wanna have, I just wanna have. You're not real though, you're just all in my head. I don't know what I I saw you that one day. You were real and you seemed so great. You were on my mind the whole day, staring at the stars so lonely. I swear I saw you that one day. You were real and you seemed so great. You were on my mind the whole day, staring at the stars so lonely. You're not real though, you're just all in my head. I don't know what I said, maybe I'm already dead. Maybe I already said I don't remember when. I don't know anymore, I'm just lost inside my head. I'm just lost inside my head. Maybe I already said I don't remember when. I remember when I lost inside. Maybe I already said I don't remember when. I remember when
Because I had toyed around with the idea that a fanfiction translated from another language into English would be kinda cringe. So, I did that. This story is entitled World by T. Laundry Ball. It is a Herobrine and Steve for Minecraft fanfiction, translated from Chinese Mandarin. Let's get started. Summary here says, Steve/Herobrine, the slash is meaningful, some extreme elements, don't look at it when you're upset, don't swear. Okay. I have no idea. I had to look up what Herobrine was, so I didn't even realize Steve had a voice. Let's get started. Steve, Herobrine called to him while sitting on the steps. Help me. Why? Help me move this box down and put it in the warehouse on the first floor. Although he has no obligation to help, despite this box sits so light, even though it is clear that Herobrine, who has the authority to create the world, can move the box down with his fingers. Steve doesn't mind being tolerant to Herobrine without hurting his own interests. Herobrine accompanied him down the stairs. Steve felt he was panting a little, and he glanced at it out of concern, and he was shocked as if he saw a creeper on the edge of a cliff. Why are you... He organized the language. Why do you lose energy when you go down the stairs? Herobrine stopped, leaned against the rails and rested, and Steve watched the energy tank floating above his head. It's full, and then continued to move forward. He suddenly found a big mistake. Aren't you without a stamina bar? I don't have one. Herobrine looked innocent. What's the matter? There are 10 hearts floating on your head that look like a stamina bar when you just walk down the stairs. It's still going crazy. Steve didn't say a word and pointed to the air above Herobrine's head. You're wrong, Herobrine said pretendingly. Brine. Steve is very patient. Don't hide it from me. Most of the time I will help you. I need to consider my own safety for the remaining few times. I don't want to force you, but experience tells me you have something to hide. When you are with me, I will be played miserably in the later stage. For example, you invited me to a firework party, but in the end just showed me the fireballs spit out by 20 withers, such as, put away your perverted curiosity, heart. What? Steve paused. Okay. He put down the box and pressed Herobrine against the wall with the help of his strength. Then let's do something that consumes energy first. He was satisfied to see that the slot of Herobrine's head had just returned one more space, but unexpectedly, he didn't jump up and scratch people like a cat thrown into the shower. Yes, he said to Steve, but you have to be very, very gentle. Steve got goosebumps all over the floor. He reviewed the few previous exercises in bed with Herobrine. The power to be gentle or not is not in his hands. Once things don't go according to Herobrine's intentions, this spoiled scam from an early age will not give everything a chance to proceed. When the atmosphere was just right, it was not uncommon that Steve was suddenly teleported to the wilderness and terrifying things, and the instigator did not forget to leave a ridicule or two before teleporting. Did you take the wrong medicine? No, Herobrine continued the topic. Otherwise, I'll get pregnant. Oh no. Steve almost spat out the breakfast he had just eaten, even though he had expressed his shamelessness more than once. Too shocked. Then what can I think? Did you get beaten by Notch again? Why isn't again? I'm just guessing. You are in the same state as before he exiled you to the end last time. You were wearing the restraining ring that restricts the authority of the god of creation. I don't have a ring on my hand. But I guessed it right, didn't I? Yes. Just in case, Steve finally confirmed, once again. So you don't have permission anymore? Just not today. Herobrine began to back slowly, but Steve was in front of him, and his back was against the wall. I made a bet with Notch. I bet on the authority of the god of creation for one day. The intention was to take this opportunity to beat him, but something happened. A small accident. Steve had intended to hold back his inner laughter, but in the end he didn't succeed. Herobrine had once brought to his mind the behavior that he nearly died out of his own personal interest. You're done, he said to Herobrine succinctly. Herobrine was pressed against the wall by him, and now he regrets it very much. I also regret this very much. Steve leaned down, his lips pressed against the side of his neck and sucked, making sure Herobrine could hear the sticky water pouring into his eardrums. A hickey. Herobrine cupped his face and kissed him. He felt that the wise move was to cooperate, so that he might not die so miserably for a while. Fuck, Notch, I really hate you. No, you lost a bet, dear brother. Notch's voice came into his mind untimely. Ah! What's the matter? Steve was startled. Notch. Herobrine pointed to his head. Can't you stop for a while, because you have made me like this? All right. There was a laugh in his head. Have a nice day, I guess Notch said. I have something to go out. Let's do it today, Herobrine. His hands were handcuffed to the head of the bed, and Herobrine, whose shirt was unbuttoned until the last button, was sitting on the bed and looked at him with a wicked look. Your brain is broken? No, I really didn't plan to fuck you today. Herobrine bent on one leg, hugged an arms of her chest vigilantly. Steve rolled over, actually put on his pajamas and got out of bed. Do you remember the nether traffic you talked about last time? I think this is feasible, as long as the location of the portal can be accurately determined. That's it? That's it? You come back to me! Steve stood by, turned around next to the bed. Don't do it? Nodding. Don't do it? You don't want it? Herobrine stretched out his hands with 2 clanging chains in front of him. Then I'll go with you. Still, you go to the lower realm in your physical condition today. I'm really afraid that you will die. Steve lifted his bangs and kissed his forehead, taking advantage of Herobrine while he was still out of condition. Cheap. You just have a good rest. I'll be back before noon. Steve didn't go to the nether, and didn't plan on transportation in the nether. Calculating the coordinates required a clear head, and he is not in the mood to engage in this now. It was just to kill time anyway. When he returned to the bedroom after pouring water from the garden, Herobrine had already grabbed the quilt and curled up and rolled on the bed. Fucking Steve, I am fat. Dare to give me medicine. Huh. Steve leaned in front of him and stayed in a position he couldn't touch. Turns out that the god of creation was not born. There is no desire or desire. It's a hell of a ghost. Yes, Herobrine once found a bottle of aphrodisiac in Steve's private box. Don't ask why it's a private box. Everything except Notch in this world has no privacy in his eyes. Given that their house is apart from the monster's brush out of the basement, just as Herobrine is a living creature, the target of this potion in the future is self-evident. The only pity is that his boyfriend is a pair of commands with his own command box, able to control everything in the materialist world. Maybe it also includes a little idealist world, for example, his own feelings. To put it more easily, sexual desire does not belong to dopamine in Herobrine. You can't expect to see things happen to him that body becomes strange without going through the brain. He can control and suppress them with command blocks. The god of absolute rationality is really boring to the extreme. And at the same time, he also announced that on the day when the command block fails, he must see a rare good show. I don't know if it's a psychological or medicinal effect. The Herobrine, who is tied to the head of the bed, is flushed, looks a little more emotional than usual, and a few words can make him emotionally collapsed. Don't want to move. Come by yourself today. You dream! Dear Herobrine, to be honest, I never dreamed that you would appear in front of me like today. The potion plan is discovering your emotional control after the mechanism. I basically gave up. I should just smash the bottle neatly, instead of taking a big sip in front of this ratio and then reading the newspaper blankly for 2 hours to humiliate him. Seriously, Steve climbed onto the bed, took Herobrine, who had already taken off only a mere shirt, on his lap, and let his genitals rub his leg through his pants. Help me? What is happening? We've done it so many times. I don't understand why you have to do this to me. Herobrine mumbled. Pants off. Steve obediently did. Herobrine leaned over his legs, swallowed the hot organ against his lips, frowned, and swallowed it in. Steve shot. ... Herobrine lifted his head from between his legs and looked at him funny with a milky liquid face. He habitually swallowed his saliva before he really started taunting. Fuck, there may be something other than saliva. Should I take a watch next and put it pinch for you to see? 1, 2, 3. If I lose for more than 3 seconds, you just want to shoot me in the mouth? Sorry. I really want to, and the most of it stems from you never let me do this before. The shame of the second shot caused Steve to temporarily stop thinking. The two of them were a little bit unhappy and separated. Herobrine's face still had the semen shot on it before. He reached for the toilet paper on the bedside table, but was held down by Steve behind. Question mark? There were 2 clicks, the sound of the handcuffs being locked. I changed my mind, Herobrine. I plan to come by myself. Being pressed by the opponent made me a bit less ashamed than moving by yourself, But the inability to grasp the speed and strength makes Herobrine feel quite hard. He is not physically strong. Yes, he didn't know that his physical strength was 3 times faster than the ordinary explorer before he put the personal strength bar on his head, and that Steve was more than 5 times faster and stronger than a strange power miner. There were also those out-of-control senses in the command block. Before shielding, they all seemed to be separated by a layer of dim window paper. But now the discomfort and pleasure caused by every collision in the body have all fallen. The feeling of genitals rubbing against the intestinal wall, and every kiss and hug he felt on his skin, his hands, looking into his eyes, hit the heartbeat of his chest. This is too much, too much. He seems to be holding a container that exceeds the volume, and the emotions in it will overflow if he is not paying attention. Herobrine. Steve stared at him. The sex organs were still buried in his body, but it didn't affect him at all. Suddenly, tenderness was like water. I love you. Are you sick? Herobrine shivered like an electric shock. Why say this all of a sudden? I always feel that it is a pity that God cannot fully understand human emotions. Looking at things across the water, some things are always impossible to see, really. He looked at Herobrine, like unable to suppress his emotions. He leaned over and kissed him quickly. Can you understand? Emotions are not something that needs to be shielded and controlled by other factors. Because love is like this. It is combined with the senses and sex. Combine, and it will make you want to stretch your hands in that direction, to touch him, to kiss him. Herobrine, sometimes it doesn't require mental consent. You talk a lot. He moved on Steve. Hurry up, please. Steve's gaze darkened, and he immediately plunged into revenge against Herobrine like an okay person. Forget that the potion will work for you this time. By the way, what did you just say? Hurry up. Hurry up what? ... Steve waited for an inch to speak. Hurry up and die. Herobrine was really fucked crying by Steve this time. His whole waist was sore, and oh, yes, that stamina bar. It's been completely crashed since they fired them with real guns and live ammunition. The fringe is precarious. Herobrine felt that she was going to faint several times and was picked up by Steve again. He held his waist and felt that this was not enough. So he leaned over his back and broke his face to kiss. Herobrine felt like he was floating on the water, where the shore was invisible, surrounded by endless waves, and he couldn't catch anything. He hates this feeling. It's better to say that he is scared. He can only call Steve's name constantly while feeling the heat in his body, as if an invisible kite string will be drawn between them. Please. Tired. Really don't want to. Tomorrow, Steve. Herobrine couldn't help begging for mercy when Steve took him from the bed to his lap again. There will be no chance tomorrow, you and I know it. The explorer laughed and started a new round of attack. He doesn't remember how many times they did that today. Is a good ending, but Herobrine remembers it. 3 times, if you count the previous second shot. 4 times. Every drop of sweat he felt on himself was imprinted with Herobrine's memory. Yes, the gods don't care about many trivial things in the world, which means that they may have missed something because of it. Herobrine hugged Steve. Living humans and beating hearts will become exhausted if they continuously active for too long. Under extreme conditions, they will be life-threatening. It is difficult to have a real sense of all this before today. Humans, he thinks, a fragile and beautiful creation. Herobrine squinted his eyes, and he started to feel a little sleepy. Rain. Dark clouds began to loom over the garden, and the originally clear sky soon began to rain. Herobrine suddenly realized that his abilities were back. He should kill him immediately, no matter what. Let him be beaten by the Ender crowd with a radius of 2 kilometers every night he goes out. However, he just waved and changed a clean sheet for the 2 of them. He leaned over and kissed Steve's lips tentatively. What? I just try. Is there any difference from the previous feeling? No, Steve lamented. The bet has expired too soon. Unexpectedly, Herobrine missed the feeling before. It was just that he won't tell anyone about it. He turned around and buried himself in Steve's arms. It's raining, a tired voice about to fall asleep. I don't want to go out tomorrow. The end? What the hell was that? Oh, nobody read this before giving it to me, I guess. It's quite a cluster of, nonsense. I love the question marks everywhere. That's fun. If anyone else has any recommendations for a story written in a different language that could be translated to English, let me know. And otherwise, you can support the channel on patreon.com/ The content you are about to watch is not intended for children. Viewer discretion advised. Welcome back, regretters. This is going to be truly regretful. Why did people want me to read this? Why did I have to look it up? God damn it. Anyway, today we're going to be reading Mordecai by Big Chungus My Lover. Yes, it is a Mordecai and Twilight fanfiction. I have not read this yet, as I never read any of the stories before recording. So let's see. I've never watched My Little Pony. I have very rarely watched regular show. But this is happening. So sit back, relax, and maybe turn off the volume. Let's get started. Mordecai and Twilight were miles away from each other, both sitting on a hill. They sung out to the stars. Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? I could really use a wish right now. Wish right now. Wish right now. They were both crying tears, but were happy they were going to reunite soon enough. After they were done singing, Twilight looked up at the stars and pictured his big, thick, blue bird dick. As Twilight went back inside, she got out her favorite snack, blue cotton candy. As she was picking out and eating the cotton candy, it reminded her of how soft Mordecai's feathers were and how hard she could make his massive dick. As she stopped herself before things got more intense, she put the cotton candy away and went to her room to take a shower. As she was in the shower, she saw her blue electric toothbrush. It reminded her of Mordecai's cock and the vibrator he used on her last time. She took the toothbrush and turned it on. Then, without her realizing what was happening, she was moaning out his name as the vibration on the toothbrush went all around her tight pussy and her sensitive clit. She kept thinking about all the things Mordecai had done to her and the things that will happen once they can finally be with each other again. Out of breath and panting after her intense orgasm, she took out the blue toothbrush and saw her own juices attached to it. God damn it! Embarrassed but still not satisfied, she put the toothbrush down. She finished her shower. She gets out with a towel loosely wrapped around her chest, covering her flat-chested boobs. She grabs the toothbrush and was about to begin again when her phone buzzed. She looked at the text, and it was from her beloved, Mordecai. It read, "Hey BBG, wanna FT? Winky face?" Already soaked from the simple text, she replied. She replied, "Sure." Then her phone began to ring. She accepted the call, still aching for him. She shoved the toothbrush back in her pussy and said, "Hi." "What you up to?" he says. Oh, nothing," Twilight replies as a little moan comes out of her mouth. "Tell me about your day," she says as Mordecai goes on telling her about his day. She's still rubbing the toothbrush all around her aching, wet pussy. A little moan will come out here and there, but nothing to where he would notice. But then, it hit her good, and she threw her head back and clenched up, trying not to moan loudly. And then Twilight, are you okay? He asked. She flips the phone to where he is facing the ceiling and mutes herself as she lets out a big moan. She squirts out of her tight, aching pussy that's beginning begging for more, but she resists. She turns the toothbrush off and puts it aside. She goes off mute and flips the phone back up to show her face, which is now covered in sweat. "Yeah, I'm great," she exclaims. "Well, you're breathing pretty heavily," Mordecai says. "Yeah, haha, I should probably get to bed. I'm pretty tired. Talk to you tomorrow. Love you," she says before he can even get a word out. She hangs up the call. She slams her head down on the bed, panting as she gets up and changes into her PJs. She lays on the bed and slowly drifts off. Time skip to the airport. Twilight is so excited to see Mordecai. She missed him so much since she's been off to college. She can't wait for all the stories he's going to tell while she was away. She was quite tired since she had to wake up at 3 a.m. to catch her flight. Still dozed, they call for the plane and she staggers over, gets through security, and hops on board. She sits down in her seat and closes her eyes, dreaming about the meeting up with her beloved. She awoke in a dark room on a bed, hearing something trail across the floor. She hears footsteps getting closer to her. She tries to move, but she notices her hands are tied up on a bed frame. She feels a bead of sweat running down her temple. "Hello, my love," she hears a familiar deep voice growl out. "Mordecai?" she stutters out. "Rongo!" the voice hisses. Her eyes widen out of fear. A dark looming figure comes out of the darkness. "Grinch!" Twilight yells. "Hello, my dear. I hope you are ready for a night of pleasure. I'll always treat you better than Mordecai, loser," he spits out. "Get away from me, psycho!" Twilight screams out. The last thing she saw was the Grinch with his mischievous smirk, with a dark laughter to follow behind. She woke up in a cold sweat and noticed she had landed. Chapter 2. As Twilight groggily exits off the plane, still shaken up by her nightmare, she sees him, sitting there. Butterflies swarm around in her stomach while her face turns red. Not even thinking, she runs towards him with a huge smile on her face. She sees him look up and a smile spread across his face that matches hers. She collided into him with fits of laughter and hugs. Mordecai lifts up Twilight's chin and looks into her doe-like eyes. He presses his beak against her lips. She wanted to stay like that for the eternity, but knew she couldn't. She pulled away, and he did as well. "You ready to head home?" Mordecai says with a yawn and a soft smile. "Yeah," Twilight said, yawning as well. After putting her luggage into the trunk, she hopped into the front seat and pressed her face against the window. Mordecai smiled and began to drive home. He began thinking back to their FaceTime call and thought about her face and how it looked when she screamed. A tent began to rise in his pants. Why is he wearing pants? I'm sorry. He took one hand off the steering wheel and began to slide his hand down Twilight's thigh. Then up, then down, teasing her, tugging at her skirt line. Twilight bit her lip and started rubbing her thighs together to create friction. Her face began turning a deep shade of red. She turned over and looked at him with pleading eyes. A mischievous smirk spread across his face. He knew what she needed, but she would just have to be patient till they got home. Up ahead, they noticed flashing red and blue lights. Mordecai took his hand off of Twilight's thigh and leaned into what looked like could be happening. "Looks like a car crash," Twilight said as they were getting closer to the flashing lights. "Ugh, we're gonna have to take the back way," Mordecai said with a grouchy tone. "You can have me the back way," Twilight said with a smirk on her face. "Oh, you're just begging for it at this point, aren't you?" Mordecai says with a big grin on his face. Mordecai turns the car around and goes down a small alleyway in the city. "You have no idea what you're doing to me," Mordecai says as he unbuckles his seatbelt and goes into the back of the car. I have a feeling I know where this is going," Twilight says. She puts her legs over the middle console and slowly starts to move his feathers out of the way, revealing his massive bluebird dick. She licks the tip progressively, going lower and lower and faster. Fuck. Mordecai groans out. Twilight stops, looks him in the eyes and said, "I've missed this," with a cheeky smirk. Just as she was about to go down again, Mordecai grabs her horn and flips her around, getting on top of her. Just before Twilight could say a word, he goes down and pecks her soft pussy, causing her to moan out. He licks it once, twice, then sticks his tongue all the way in, causing her to moan out and start squirming. "Stop moving, my love," he says. I'm trying to just... Fuck. She lets out a loud moan as she starts to lick her wet pussy up and down, getting faster and faster. Right before Twilight is about to orgasm, Mordecai stops, edging her as he looks her in the eyes. Why did you Twilight asks before she could finish. He goes back down, her to orgasm as she pants. "You're a good little girl, aren't you?" Mordecai says in a mischievous way. "Now why don't you stay here until we get home, he says as Twilight pants. Both satisfied, Twilight and Mordecai cuddle together in the car for about 10 minutes. Mordecai felt Twilight's breath soften as he looked down to see her sleeping. He smiled and got up, giving her a quick kiss before buckling her seatbelt on. He crawled back to the front and began driving again and yawned. 20 minutes later, they finally arrived home. "Wake up, princess. We're home," Mordecai said sleepily. Twilight opened her eyes, still drowsy, and got out of the car. She began to open the trunk when Mordecai interrupted her and said, "We can get your stuff in the morning, but for now, let's get you to bed, okay?" Twilight nodded and held his hand as he led her back to the apartment. They finally got back to his apartment and he laid her down on the bed. He got in bed right beside her and pulled up the covers over both of them. "I love you so much, princess," Mordecai said, kissing her head, then spooning her. Chapter 3. Twilight's eyes opened up to the sun shining brightly in her face. She reached over for her love, but found no one there. She looked around the room, shielding her eyes from the bright sun, and saw Mordecai sitting at the island. She got up and shuffled over to the island and fell into Mordecai's arms. "Hey, Sleeping Beauty," he said with a low morning voice. She noticed he had a cup of coffee with "Number 1 Early Bird" written on the mug with marker, smudged. She smirked and walked over to the coffee machine and brewed her own cup. She walked back and leaned over the countertop and looked at Mordecai. She felt her heart skip a beat as she studied him, his pretty blue feathers, his pretty eyes, his long beak, and his long... She stopped herself. "So what do you want to do today?" Mordecai asked, leaning down, mimicking her movements with a soft smile. Twilight yawned. "You?" she said with a smirk on her face. Mordecai laughed and gave her a kiss on the cheek. "You're just gonna have to wait until later tonight," he said. Twilight didn't want to wait, though, so she turned around and pouted. "What's wrong, darling?" Mordecai asked. "Nothing," she said with an attitude. "Drop the attitude, missy," he said with a stern voice. Twilight looked at him with puppy eyes. "I'm sorry, sir," Twilight said shyly. "I just wanted, you know." She looked down at his dick, then back up to his face. I can tell that you want it, but that attitude doesn't seem like you should get it," Mordecai said, serving his dominance over her. Whatever," Twilight said, irritated. Mordecai sighed. "Go get washed up. We're going somewhere today." "Yes, sir," Twilight replied as she went over to the bathroom to get ready for the day. While Twilight was in the shower, minding her business, Mordecai came in and slipped an app-controlled vibrator into a slit in her underwear. He planned to control the vibrator while they were at the diner they were going to, leading up things to be more intense when they get home. Mordecai had been dying to take Twilight since the last time she came to visit him last summer. It was where their first date was and where their first kiss was. He has a reservation for 5 p.m., so by the time Twilight and Mordecai were ready, they would have enough time to get to there since it was about an hour and a half from his apartment. After she was done showering, she put on a white crop top with a dark blue skirt. She put her hair in a ponytail and walked out the bathroom door. "I'm ready," she said enthusiastically. Mordecai looked up from his phone and smiled. He stood up and walked over to her. "You look great," he said, looking down at her, putting his hands on her hips. "All right, let's go," he said, sliding his hands down to hers. Hand in hand, they walked out the door to the parking lot and got into the car. Twilight buckled into her seatbelt and looked over at Mordecai, staring at her. "What?" she asked, confused. "I'm just so lucky. I love you so much," he said softly. Twilight felt her face heat up, while a small grin spread across her face. "All right," Mordecai said, refocusing. "Let's get this show on the road." "Wait, where are we going?" Twilight asked, realizing she had no idea where he was taking her. "You'll see," he said with a wink and a sly grin to follow. With that, they drove off. Chapter 4. The Dinner. "You look very nice today," Mordecai said. "Oh, thank you," Twilight said happily. "I haven't worn this skirt yet, and I've been so busy, and I've been waiting to wear it for a special occasion," Twilight said happily. "Well, I really like it on you," Mordecai said with a smirk on his face. "Can you tell me where we're going now? Please!" Twilight said, pleading. "I'm not going to tell you that again, Twilight. Stop asking me," Mordecai said in a stern tone. "Yes, sir," Twilight said, annoyed. The rest of the drive was silent. When they pulled up to the restaurant, Twilight squealed with joy. "OMG, I've missed this place," she said. Hee, I knew you might have missed this place," Mordecai said. They walk into the restaurant and get seated down. "Thank you for taking me here," Twilight said excitedly. "Anything for you, princess," Mordecai said with a smile. "So, what are you gonna get?" Twilight asked. I'm thinking of getting an omelet. What about you?" he said. "I'm gonna get the nachos," Twilight exclaimed. After they got their drinks, Mordecai brought out his phone and opened the vibrator's app. He decided to start slow so she wouldn't freak out, since she had no clue. He slid the bar up and watched as Twilight's eyes widened. She looked at him, dead in the eyes, and Mordecai just laughed. "What is that?" Twilight whispered. "Oh, nothing. I may or may not have put a vibrator in your panties while you were in the shower," he said, smiling. "Mordecai, don't do anything stupid," Twilight whisper yelled. "Heh, I won't," he said with a cheeky smirk. When the waitress came over to get their order, Mordecai had his phone out, which Twilight knew he was going to do at any moment. "Hello, lovelies. What can I get you tonight?" the waitress asked. "Yeah, I'd like one omelet, please," Mordecai said, looking at the menu. "All right. What about you, darling?" Right as Twilight was about to speak, Mordecai slid the bar up to a medium-high setting, causing Twilight to jerk from the sudden vibration. May I get the nachos, please?" Twilight said hesitantly. "All right. I'll be back with your food in about 30 minutes. "Mordecai, turn it down," Twilight stuttered out. Nah. Seeing you all flustered is adorable," he cooed. I can't take this for that long," Twilight said, squeezing her thighs together in a poor attempt to make the vibrations stop. Mordecai, loving every minute of this, slowly turned it up more and more. "Ah!" Twilight moaned out quietly. "Shh! We don't want to attract attention, do we?" Mordecai said with a smirk. He reached under the table and grabbed her thigh. Twilight had tears in her eyes. She couldn't bear it. Her face was growing redder by the second. Mordecai himself was beginning to get a tent in his pants. He walked over to the other side of the booth where Twilight was sitting. What are you doing?" Twilight asked, now gripping onto the table. Mordecai just smiled and shrugged. Twilight leaned back and tried to ignore the vibration when another sensation occurred. She felt warm hands trailing up her thigh, closer to her heat. Mordecai got close to her ear and whispered, "Don't come or make a sound, okay, princess? Or else you will have a punishment." Twilight could hear his smile. She quickly nodded. Mordecai slid his hand slowly down her stomach towards her aching pussy when the waitress came back. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. "All right, dearies, here's y'all's foods," the waitress said sweetly. "Do y'all need any refills?" she asked. "Yes, please. Twilight dear, could you give the kind lady our glasses?" Mordecai said mischievously. Twilight looked at him with pleading eyes and shakily picked up the glasses. She moved them over to the waitress. "Thank you, dear," the waitress said with a smile. As the waitress poured in the water, Mordecai turned up the vibrator even higher. Twilight's eyes widened even further. "Urgh!" she moaned out, clenching onto the booth. The waitress looked at her with an eyebrow arched, but shrugged it off. "All right, y'all have a good meal," the waitress said. And with that, she walked off, leaving the two lovers alone with their food. Mordecai turned down the vibrator so Twilight could enjoy her meal. Soon enough, they finished their meal and decided to head home. Twilight was exhausted, but she still ached down there. She pressed her thighs together, hoping to get some friction in between them. She looked over at Mordecai with pleading eyes once more. She thought to herself, she could just get a counter for every time she made that pleading face. Mordecai kept his eyes on the road, knowing exactly what he was doing. It was all according to plan, when a small gasp of air caught him off guard. He looked over to see Twilight's hands over her heat, rubbing it softly. Mordecai immediately reached over and grabbed her hand. "What do you think you're doing?" Mordecai said seductively. "I can't help it. You've teased me all night," Twilight said, frustrated. Mordecai chuckled. "Just wait a little longer, sweetheart," he said, looking back at the road. Once they got home, Twilight and Mordecai immediately rushed home and ran to the bed. Mordecai threw Twilight onto the bed and began to crawl over to her, kissing her, then leaving a trail of kisses down to her chest. Twilight bit her lip and looked down to see him, Mordecai, staring right back up at her. Before he continued, Twilight grabbed his head and brought him close to her face. "I love you," she said, looking into his dark but shining eyes. "I love you too, princess," he said, giving her a kiss on the forehead. He made his way back down to where he was and started kissing lower and lower till he reached her pelvic area. He stopped. "Why did you stop?" she whined. "I want you to beg for it," he said with a sinister smirk. But, she sputtered out. "No buts. Beg if you want it," he said sternly. "Please, Mordecai, make me feel good." The end! For now, I guess. It was updated 5 days ago, and I hate this. Thanks, Big Chungus, my lover, for giving me permission to read this story. As much as I did not enjoy it. I mean, you know. Regretfully, of course. Boy, oh boy. We got more coming. Does anyone say Minecraft? Who said who? Yeah, you in the back. Did you say Minecraft? You suck. Minecraft's coming soon, I guess. See you next. The content you are about to watch is not intended for children. Viewer discretion advised. Welcome back, regretters. It's time for another episode of Regretful Reads. This episode, we're diving into something written by one of the patrons. Isn't that fun? It is a sequel to the Doc and DeLorean fanfiction by the Tin Dog. This story is entitled 1.21 Gigawatts of Pleasure, a DeLorean and Lightning McQueen fanfiction. Synopsis here says, over the past few months, strange things had been happening around the little town of Radiator Springs, but soon as Lightning returned after a big race, he would have an unexpected visitor from another timeline. All right, let's get started. Oh man, can't wait to see everyone again. Lightning McQueen looked out of the tinted windows of his trailer, seeing passing cars while heading down Route 66. It had been a busy racing season for him, managing to win this year's Piston Cup by a bumper. He couldn't wait to see everyone in that little town that he so loved, seeing the familiar faces of the residents he befriended during his first time at Radiator Springs. He soon sees the familiar sign passing by his window, his eyes lighting up with joy. "Hey, Lightning, are you up?" spoke his driver, Mac, on the radio. "Yeah, Mac. Hadn't slept since we left," McQueen replied. "I wonder if there's a party or something the guys are setting up." "That's funny," Mac spoke again, sounding slightly confused. "I hadn't heard anything from Sally or anybody before we left." Lightning was confused. He hadn't heard anything from the town either for the past few days. He wondered if they had a busy week. He did put the town back on the map after all, so it wouldn't be surprising for loads of visitors to come by, seeing the hometown of a famous race car. A few minutes passed as Lightning sees the site of the Cozy Cone Motel appearing on his left. It looked empty, as if no one was home. Perhaps it's a surprise, he thought to himself. Probably something Mater or Sal had thought up. As soon as Mac comes to a complete stop, the trailer door soon opens, allowing Lightning to drive out. He looked puzzled at the strange, eerie silence of the town. It was a ghost town when he first arrived all those years ago, but not like this. It was as if everyone had left in a hurry. "Where in the heck is everyone?" Lightning spoke, breaking the silence. "I don't know," Max spoke as he stopped by McQueen's side. "Maybe it was a tractor stampede or something along those lines." "If it was the case, why does everything look clean?" McQueen replied, noticing that everything was left untouched. But he soon notices all of the windows in the town were broken, and what appeared to be a greenish goo coming from the direction of the reception desk of the motel. Lightning soon quickly approaches the reception, stopping in front of it. He gulps, before leaning forward on his tires and speaking. "Sally, are you home?" Suddenly, without warning, there were two bright flashes on the main road, followed by a loud bang. The third was even louder and longer than the last two, as a car soon quickly emerged from it. Mac yelps as he moves in reverse, getting out of the way of the incoming car as it screeches to a stop. McQueen quickly looks back to where Mac was, seeing a frozen car that stopped near the gas station. "What the?" Lightning spoke as he approached the car. "Is that a DeLorean?" He stops as the DeLorean's gull-wing door flies open with a loud hiss, jumping back as a man in a yellow coat and white hair jumps out. "Great Scott!" the old man shouts, looking around from where he was standing. "Hey, Doc, where are we?" said a much younger man as he stepped out of the passenger side. "Or when are we?" Doc soon walks up a bit, noticing the empty town in front of him. "By the looks of things, Marty, we're still in the early 21st century, perhaps during the late 2010s. Doc spoke to Marty. Lightning, hiding behind the reception building, sees the two men talking. Are they aliens? He spoke quietly to himself. What did they do to that DeLorean? "But Doc, we're not in 1955!" Marty shouted. "And I don't think this is Hill Valley anymore!" Doc quickly runs up to Marty, putting his hands on his shoulders. Now, Marty, it could be a slight malfunction in the time circuits," Doc spoke, trying to calm the panicking McFly. "Whatever old Biff had done in the time machine, I don't think it'll make it easier for us to get that book back." Doc soon runs to the back of the time machine, opening up Mr. Fusion for another trip. McQueen's eyes widen, thinking that they were driving out of the DeLorean's lifeless corpse. Those sick fucks. Lightning spoke angrily. "I won't let them get away with this." He soon lets out a loud rev of his engine, alerting Doc and Marty as McQueen charges through them at full speed. "Marty, watch out!" Doc shouts to Marty. Marty screams as he tries to jump out of the way, but he wasn't fast enough to avoid the speeding car. At full force, Lightning bonnets Marty, yeeting his body across the gas station as Marty oofs in pain. His body impacts the ground, spinning to a stop as Doc looks on with horror. "Marty!" he screams as Marty lays motionless on the ground. Lightning soon stops, facing Doc with anger in his eyes. "You think you can get away with this shit, Lips?" McQueen chuckled. "Everyone knows when there's a storm, there's always lightning." Doc, realizing the situation, soon tries to get into the DeLorean. As soon as he makes one step, Lightning soon charges towards Emmett. Doc soon tries to make a break for it, but Lightning was a few meters away from him within the next few seconds. Suddenly, the DeLorean's engine fires up before slamming into McQueen's left side. "Oof!" McQueen yells in pain as he spins out from the impact. "I just got that side painted!" This gave Doc enough time to hide out of sight of the pissed-off race car as he stopped. He looked at the DeLorean, which was now stopping near him, its headlights beaming on his side as it stayed in idle. "What did they do to your eyes?" McQueen spoke, clearly terrified at the sports car. "Listen, I didn't mean to hit that guy. The DeLorean soon quickly moves closer to McQueen, making him stop mid-sentence. It stood there in idle for a few more seconds, before Lightning noticed the headlights had some sort of eyelids as it squinted at him. From the single cartoon feminine eyelash, it was a woman of sorts. "How interesting," the DeLorean spoke in a British accent. "An automobile with human-like characteristics. You're quite a strange specimen, aren't you?" Lightning was taken aback by this. "It can talk." "Wow," Lightning stuttered. I don't know what you're implying, miss." "Delora," she replied, looking around McQueen's body. "Do you eat or drink?" "No," McQueen spoke. "We just have gas." He was confused by all of this, the town being empty, the broken windows and the green goo from the motel, and now the mysterious DeLorean that appeared out of thin air with two strange creatures inside her. So, Delora," he speaks again, now feeling confused. "Are you a DeLorean?" Delora looks back at McQueen with a glare. "What do I look like? One of those Mustang whores the Americans like so much?" she spoke, sounding insulted by his question. "Something tells me you didn't see any DeLoreans in your life." "Well, it's just," Lightning began. "Aren't most of you guys, I don't know, Irish or something?" Delora let out a slight chuckle. "Well, I'm not. Some people were confused on why I spoke with Irish, feminine voices as they called it, so I had to change something more suitable to my role." "Your role?" McQueen questioned. "Well," she began, "I was outfitted to be a time machine, one that can travel through the fourth dimension at any point in history, if that's what you were wondering." This made Lightning's eyes widen in shock and excitement as he tried to get back on his tires. Wait, you're a time machine? As in, an actual time machine?" He grunts as he stands. Delora blinks and lowers her front slightly as if she's nodding. McQueen couldn't help but let out a slight smile. "Wow!" McQueen let out, sounding like actor Owen Wilson. "I never thought to see a time machine in real life, even one as beautiful as you." Delora just stared at McQueen as he gave a smirk. "Excuse me?" She was slightly taken aback from his response. His eyes widened again, noticing what he said. Oh, sorry. I have a thing with ladies. It just came out," he quickly spoke in embarrassment. He was blushing red, more red than his body coat. He notices Delora's lids move slightly to look a sight of lust. I didn't think you would have any taste in women," she teased. "What can I say?" McQueen replied as his face changed back into a smirk. "I am a ladies' man." Doc looked around the corner, noticing the two talking. "Great Scott! It seems we've arrived somewhere where vehicles are the only sentient beings on the planet. Doc spoke, processing everything. He notices a small yellow beetle flying by, wearing a black and yellow stripe at the center. Hey, I'm Barry. You like jazz? The beetle spoke to the Doc, making him jump back with a yelp. McQueen and Delora notice Doc in the distance as he jumps into a nearby bush. Mind telling me who that is? McQueen questioned. Oh, him? Delora replied. That's just my inventor/owner. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. McQueen looked back to her, in confusion again. As in, the time machine part? He spoke. Yep, she replied with a smirk. Oh, McQueen spoke. Thoughts began to race around McQueen's mind, ideas that were familiar to him when he revved Sally after every race. He wanted to take this DeLorean right here, right now. But he tried to resist the need to plow her. As if on cue, Delora soon grabs McQueen by his rear tire and drags him near one of the cozy cones. She didn't know what she was doing. Her mind was screaming at her to stop and think about this. But she figured that it would be better than Emmett's tiny little Stevie in his his tiny little Stevie in his pants. She lets go of McQueen as she stops. McQueen looked back at her in anger. Hey, lady, what the hell are you doing? He stopped mid-sentence, seeing Delora had raised her backside in the air, giving him a good look at the makeshift Orvis Doc made. Like what you see, Stickers? Delora teased, with a hint of lust in her voice. This got Lightning's oil to boil. He wanted to smash Sally's thick car ass when he got back, so this got his engine racing. But he soon notices the Orvis where the license plate would be. Wait, shouldn't there be a plate or something? Lightning questioned, still confused by the fleshlight. Delora rolled her headlights in annoyance. Don't ask, she replied. Lightning moved closer to her, feeling his car pee-pee growing. He hesitated. Come on, mate. It's not gonna hurt you or anything. Oh! Delora was caught off guard as she felt McQueen's tongue on the fleshlight. She pants as he digs his tongue deeper into her, tasting the fluids leaking from it. Not quite as tasty as Sally's tailpipe, he thought to himself, but it still has a nice texture he was used to. Delora's wheel began to buckle with pleasure. She felt like she was going to explode. Oh, fuck, she moaned. This feels amazing. McQueen soon takes his touch out, causing Delora to tense up as she lets out a sigh. He gets into position and goes on top of her rear, his car pee-pee touching the tip of the fleshlight. He leans towards her. I am speed, McQueen whispers to Delora. She was confused by the comment, but soon gasps as he inserts the metal rod into her. He soon begins to thrust into her, revving his engine with each thrust. Oh man, you feel so tight, McQueen groans with a smirk. Delora couldn't get a word out. She was panting and moaning hard with each ram of McQueen's McSchlong. Yes, just like that. Fuck! Delora manages to get out. She can feel the bolts and tips that hold the wires and cables buckle and rattle. She moves closer into McQueen, making him smile. Oh yeah, ka-chow! Lightning groans, increasing his speed. Doc soon hears the sounds of clanking metal and moans as he pokes his head out of the bush, noticing the two in the middle of lovemaking. That bitch! Doc yells, rushing towards them as Barry calls him to stop. I built that thing to travel through time, not to be a slut! Delora couldn't hear Doc's yelling as the banging metal covered his voice. Do you hear something? She let out. Lightning rolls his eyes, waiting for Doc to get closer. Doc stops near them, clearly pissed. Listen here, buddy. I'm the only one who's allowed to use that. Suddenly, Doc was cut off as McQueen slams his rear tires into Doc's face, sending his body flying like a bitch as he sending his body flying like a bitch as he ragdolled to the floor. Lightning soon grips Delora harder as he thrusts faster, causing small dents to form in her rear bumper as Delora barks like a bitch in heat. Oh yeah! She yells out, feeling McQueen's dong thrusting into her deeper and harder. Oh yeah, I'm about to come into first place! Lightning groans, feeling his climax building in his George Washington. Oh, yes! Give it to me! Delora moans. With one last thrust, McQueen slams deep inside of her, letting out a loud, "Ka-chow!" Delora yells in pleasure as she feels herself fill up with McQueen's creams. He continues to fill up Delora more and more with his sweet car dairy. Delora soon realizes that she was being filled too much as she feels the fleshlight about to burst. Wait, stop! She yells out as the fleshlight soon breaks open, feeling the goo splatter inside the reactor. There was nothing at first, but then the flux capacitor soon began to flux violently, the flux bands beginning to glow in neon blue as sparks flew out. She groans, "Oh, you stupid son of a..." With a bright flash, McQueen was sent flying backwards into a building as Delora disappeared with a loud bang. The cloud of particles soon collapses to where Delora was, leaving a pair of fire trails behind, forming a 60 9 on the ground. McQueen shakes his vision clearing. He notices the 2 trails of fire from where Delora was standing, seeing the fleshlight spinning like a plate before falling to one side. He realizes what had transpired, quickly running towards the scene. "Delora! Delora!" McQueen calls out, trying to find her. But it was no use. She had disappeared into the space-time continuum. He looks down with sadness, not knowing where or when she had disappeared to. He turns to Doc, who was getting up, realizing what had happened as he clutched the side of his head. "Great Scott!" Doc spoke slowly in horror. "The flux capacitor must have had a gigawatt overload. Who knows what damage could be done to the space-time continuum if she fell into the wrong hands?" Lightning soon looked up into the night sky. "Well, wherever or whenever she is," McQueen spoke as he looked back at Doc. "I hope she's having a blast." Doc stared at McQueen for a few more seconds, flabbergasted. "Are you serious?" Doc spoke with annoyance. Clearly McQueen was not processing the situation. Meanwhile, in 2021, A pregnant fix-it Felix was wondering what to do with his child after looking at Ralph's dick. "What should I do?" he thought to himself as he finished his journal. As soon as he uploads it, Felix looks out the window facing Ralph's house with a sigh. Suddenly, with 3 bright flashes, a DeLorean soon crashes through his house, causing a nuclear explosion, which wipes out the whole neighborhood. The end. What a twist ending! Oh, God. There was a reason I was delaying reading this, the Tin Dog. Is truly regretful. Join the Discord if you want to submit your own suggestions. But if you want me to read it like this, you might need to become a patron. Patreon.com/regretfulreads. Or a YouTube member. Anyway, I guess we gotta do more stuff. So I'll see you next time. Take care. The content you are about to watch is not intended for children. Viewer discretion advised. Welcome back, regretters. This is the day that I hoped would never come. The minions have entered chat. Too bad. Well, let's get this over with. Welcome back to another Regretful Reads. Today we are reading The Bad Boy, a Minion fic, by Minion Lover 920. Why 920? I'm not sure. Let's get started. Chapter 1. For years, the Minions had searched for someone who could satisfy their sexual needs. God damn it, oh no! First sentence. They wanted the baddest of them all. Someone who would be rough with them and punish them. Someone who could be their master. Their yellow tic-tac-sized penises never filled them the way they wanted. Every time they had sex, they cried because it was so bad. They were desperate. Just when they thought they would never find anyone, they did. Grew. Chapter 2. A group of minions were standing at a street corner holding a sign that said, "We'll work for Dick," when they were approached by Gru. They all instantly came at the sight of his toothpicks, legs, and massive nose. Gru had seen the sign, and since he hadn't gotten cooch in 50 years, he was pretty horny. Gru wasted no time and tied all the minions up right there on the street corner and slapped their juicy yellow cheeks. He wanted to penetrate the little yellow beans so bad, but it was no nut November. Instead, he took out the bananas he had just bought while grocery shopping. He slipped a fat one into each of their tiny buttholes. He grew a few more arms so he could slide the bananas in and out of all of them at the same time. The minions came so hard that they forgot how to speak English. Gru got back into his car and drove home, eating the bananas that had... eating the bananas that had been in the minions. The minions were in awe. They knew they had found the person they had been searching for. They hurried back to the other minions to tell them what had happened, and then they all went to Gru's house. Gru was sitting at home trying to suck his own dick. When he heard the doorbell ring, he jumped and peeked out the windows, hoping it wasn't the FBI. What he saw waiting for him was much better. Chapter 3. Gru brought all the minions down to his basement. Dr. Nefario was thrilled when he saw them. Finally, Gru would stop trying to suck his wrinkly penis. The last time Gru had given him head, Gru had accidentally gotten some of his white pubes stuck in his teeth. When he tried to move his mouth, he had ripped Dr. Nefario's penis off. It took weeks to reattach. But now, these musty yellow beings would be the ones suffering from Gru's head with teeth. But Gru had other plans. He wanted his dick to be slobbered on. The horny minions loved this idea. But first, Gru wanted to put bananas in all of them. He lined them all up and then used his 10,400 arms to slide the ripe bananas into their waiting holes. The minions thrust desperately, throwing their yellow thick butts back. Gru watched from his floating 2002 Toyota Corolla, but grimy Dr. Nefario sat right in front of the line of minions, beating the soul out of his saggy, half-attached penis. Dr. Nefario had a big-ass head, but clearly no brain in it. And so when the minions all came, he was in the middle of the splash zone. Their yellow cum drenched him, and it was toxic, so Dr. Nefario died. Seeing Dr. Nefario dead made Gru even hornier, and he was now rock hard. Gru drank the minion cum and then tossed Dr. Nefario's nasty body out of the way so he could get some good head. The minions licked their non-existent lips. They were ready. Chapter 4. Gru took his penis out of the backpack he had to carry it around in. It was too big to keep in his pants. He carefully unfolded it to reveal a penis the size of a small house. It was kind of wavy, and that turned the minions on. Gru took some penis enlargement pills to make sure that every minion could get a taste at the same time. Half of the minions lined up on one side of his penis, and the other half lined up on the other side. One minion wanted to suck Gru's balls, but Gru didn't have any. And so the minion started crying. Gru smacked him and he died. The minions all started working on their own sections, licking and sucking every inch of Gru's bent cock. Gru screeched in pleasure. The minions were overwhelmed. They loved the taste of Gru's dick. It was a sweet mixture of lotion and dirty socks. Gru was getting dangerously close to coming. It was November 22nd, and after the misery he had went through this month, he wasn't about to lose now. Chapter 5. He tried to get the minions off, but they bit his dick in response and kept sucking, so Gru started spinning his meat around to get them to get off his penis. Soon, the minions were flying off from the force of his meat fan. Unfortunately, they hit the walls so hard that they were dying. Their yellow bodies sprayed across the wall. Gru lost control. The dead minions awoke something new inside of him. He's never felt so horny. His penis erupted like a volcano, spraying cum everywhere. The few minions who had survived his dick fan drowned in it. Gru had reached his peak potential. He started to ascend into the heavens. But God wasn't having that shit, so he smacked him the fuck back down. The end. Oh, no. Oh, wow. Did you like that one? That was a story. If you'd like to support the channel and have more stories like this, you can go to patreon.com/regretfulreads or become a YouTube member. But until next time, I guess just take care of yourself and don't get picked up by Gru on the streets, because we all know how that ends now. Take care. The content you are about to watch is not intended for children. Viewer discretion advised. Welcome back, Regretters. It's time for another episode of Regretful Reads. We're getting back into Squidbob. Yes, we are finally doing part 10. Can a sponge and an octopus grow the family? It's by Sanders Edge. Summary here says, SpongeBob wants another child, but fears getting pregnant again. Can the couple come up with a plan to turn their family of 3 into a family of 4? There's also another note here that says, the series is going to start moving away from explicit sexual content. While I certainly don't mind writing those scenes, this seems to have taken a different direction, and one of the focuses more on the family life instead of sexual adventures. Well, at least it won't be as regrettable. Maybe it'll turn into something sweet. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Business is booming. Things were going well for SpongeBob and Squidward now that the Krusty Krab was fully staffed with competent employees. The fact that they weren't interested in sleeping with either owner was just an added benefit too. The money was rolling in, and Mr. Krabs was beyond ecstatic at how his 2 former employees had transformed his business. Sales were at a record high, and sea creatures from all over the South Pacific were making a trek to Bikini Bottom just to taste the delicious patties. William McCrabson, the restaurant's new cook, was incredible behind the grill and often made work a great deal of fun. His thick Scottish brogue, upbeat personality, and the ability to always make a cracker of a joke brought a breath of fresh air to the kitchen. He also had developed a brand new dish, Krabby and Chips. That was his take on the kelp and chips he used to make back home. It was a monumental hit and was often in close competition with the signature Krabby Patties for top seller. Kiyoshi was the perfect cashier. Even if he was still a little shy, his ability to keep the customers happy was second to none, and he was never one to complain either. He took everything in stride too, since McCrabson often liked to razz him for whatever reason, and Kiyoshi often found himself as the butt of the crab's joke. Still, McCrabson took a shine to the young mackerel and treated him like a son, often giving him life advice and helping him with whatever problems faced the young fish. Finally, Squenifer, the restaurant's waitress, had become best friends with Cindy, the other waitress and Mr. Krabs' love interest. They worked wonderfully together, acting like a well-oiled machine, and could manage tables better than any duo in Bikini Bottom. The looming issue, though, was whether or not Cindy would stay on once Mr. Krabs ultimately popped the question. The pair had been nearly inseparable since Eugene had asked her out on a date all those months ago. She was also giddy with excitement, and neither SpongeBob or Squidward had ever seen their former boss so happy. As for SpongeBob and Squidward, the sponge had taken a back seat to most things and let Squidward run most of the business. He had a really good knack for it, and while SpongeBob certainly missed being at the Krusty Krab, he enjoyed spending time with his daughter more. So much had happened over the past few years. It was great to make up for all the lost time. In other aspects of the home front, things were going well for the happily married couple too. While Squidward did spend a great deal of time at the restaurant, he made sure he was home every night for dinner, especially since Claire was taking after SpongeBob and loved to cook. As Claire got older, it quickly became a nightly ritual for the small family of 3 to prepare a meal together. Then after everything was cleaned up, they'd do something as a family, whether it was going for a walk or simply sitting together on the couch to watching something on TV. Squidward was very content with his life, and given how much turmoil there'd been over the past few years, he enjoyed how mundane things had gotten to. It was the same schedule nearly every day, but there was stability and structure that the octopus craved. There was one thing Squidward didn't like to be routine though, and that was his alone time with his husband. Sure, they still made love several times per week, but it had quickly gone from wild and crazy to completely vanilla. Squidward didn't hate it and loved sharing a bond with his partner, but he craved just a morsel of being wild and crazy again. SpongeBob didn't really seem to notice though. Every time he coupled with Squidward, he felt the same magic he'd always had, and it never occurred to him to change it up. He'd started off with light kisses and quickly moved down to roll Squidward's mating arm around in his mouth. Then once it was fully erect, Spongebob would lay down and guide the octopus's member into his waiting private pore. One night after Claire had been put to bed and Spongebob was laying on the couch reading a book, Squidward figured he'd take some initiative to change things up. He didn't really know how to broach the subject, though. He knew Spongebob got overly emotional and didn't really have the energy to deal with a sobbing sponge at the moment. However, at the same time, he knew nothing would change if he didn't at least say something. "Hey, Sponge? Hey, Sponge?" Squidward twiddled his tentacles nervously. "Can we talk for a second?" "Sure, Squiddy," Spongebob said, his voice wavering with fright. Is something wrong?" No, Squidward waved his tentacle. "It's nothing bad, I promise. It's just that I want to talk about, what we do in the bedroom." "What do you mean?" Spongebob was still scared at what Squidward was going to say to him. "Is there something wrong?" "No, not really," Squidward hesitated. "It's just that things have become a little dull, don't you think?" "I'm sorry, Squidward," Spongebob sniffled, trying his best not to cry. "I thought I was doing enough for you, but I'll try harder." "Spongebob, don't cry." Squidward felt awful now. "Look, think back to when we were first starting to date, or even when we were newlywed. Didn't we have some wild times in bed? I remember trying all sorts of things, and when it really got good, you'd quite literally explode and paint the walls. Do you remember that?" "I do." Spongebob managed to hold back his tears and even let out a little giggle as the memories came flooding back. "Look, I know things are different now," Squidward continued, trying to tread lightly so as not to upset Spongebob again. "I mean, we have a family, work is more involved, and we have actual responsibilities. I'm not expecting us to go crazy again. Just spice it up a bit, you know?" "I think so." Spongebob was unsure. "The only spicing I know is how to do through food. So how do I make our mating spicy?" "You're cute when you're confused." Squidward laughed. "No, I mean we need some more adventure in the bedroom. All we do is kiss. You give me a blowjob, and then I pound on you for a few minutes until we both come. There's got to be more to it than that. Don't you have any fantasies or anything we used to do that you wished we could do again?" "Remember?" Spongebob turned bright red, embarrassed to say it out loud. "Remember when we were in Australia and you stuffed me with your tentacles? I think I'd like that again. Or do you remember the toys and how much fun they were? Just not the one that turns me into a toy." "Let's not dwell on that one." Squidward remembered that little toy very well, as it was the one brought about the unexpected pregnancy and subsequent miscarriage. But yes, exactly those things. Can we maybe incorporate them back into our bedroom routine? It doesn't have to be every time, just every once in a while. "Okay, Squiddy." Spongebob's mood had perked up considerably. "So how about right now?" "How about right now?" Squidward was caught off guard. "I mean, Claire is asleep and—" Spongebob couldn't even finish the sentence. In a flash, Squidward had scooped up his partner in his tentacles and carried him upstairs to see whatever the night had in store for them. Chapter 2. The Baby Store. Over the coming weeks, things were getting progressively better in the bedroom. Squidward quit being so uptight about keeping it fresh and new all the time, and Spongebob started making a conscious effort to try and spice it up the best he could. Ultimately, the pair found a rhythm, and before too long, their run-of-the-mill vanilla sex was a thing of the past. Almost every night, The two would try something new and were even venturing more into role reversal like they'd done so long ago. SpongeBob was still a bit awkward with it and often had a hard time growing the correct size appendage, but Squidward appreciated the effort and would just laugh any calamities off. As an added side effect to all the rekindled lovemaking, SpongeBob and Squidward also found themselves closer in other ways too. While over the years they'd often been more or less on the same page, the new romance they experienced really helped their communication to blossom. On Sunday morning, when SpongeBob laid cuddled up with Squidward under the warm covers, the pair's conversation turned to the upcoming year.
So, Sponge, have you thought about what's going to happen when Claire goes to school later this year?
Squidward asked as he stroked his partner's face.
Gee, Squiddy,
SpongeBob replied, tracing his fingers over the octopus's chest.
I haven't really thought about that yet, but I probably should.
She's growing up really fast, isn't she?
Squidward said.
She is.
SpongeBob felt a tinge of sadness wash over him.
I kind of wish that we could have had that second baby, you know.
I know, Sponge.
Squidward gave his mate a squeeze, sensing the sadness.
But we're lucky to have little Claire Bear, and she's perfect. Wait, you're not suggesting...
Goodness, no!
SpongeBob gasped.
Look, I would love to have another little one running around, but there's no way I want to be pregnant again. That was too much, and I didn't think mentally prepared for that.
Oh, thank Neptune.
Squidward sighed, then chuckled.
I thought for a moment you were suggesting that we grow our family.
I mean, I'm not against the idea.
SpongeBob was lost in thought.
I just don't want to be pregnant.
Then how in the barnacles do you propose we have a child?
God damn it. Squidward chuckled, remembering that SpongeBob didn't always know the ins and out of how things worked.
Couldn't you get pregnant?
SpongeBob suggested.
That's not possible.
Squidward resisted the urge to mock his partner.
I'm male, remember? You're the only one of us that can be a female if they want to be.
Oh yeah, that's right.
SpongeBob turned red with embarrassment.
Couldn't we just buy a baby?
Squidward was really trying hard not to laugh now.
Sponge, you can't just go to the store and buy a baby. I'm not even sure that's legal.
But Sandy's brother did,
SpongeBob said.
You mean adoption?
Squidward was finally putting the pieces together.
Yeah, that's not buying a baby, you chowderhead. You get a kid that doesn't have parents and raise it as one of your own.
You mean like you do with a snail?
SpongeBob was confused.
I mean...
Squidward couldn't believe that SpongeBob just compared a kid to a snail, but knew he shouldn't be surprised.
Sure, if you want to think of it that way. There's more to it, though, than just getting to a pet store and picking out the one you'd like. There's interviews, paperwork, lots of money, travel, and Neptune knows what else.
But you could give a kid a chance at having a family, though, right?
The gears in SpongeBob's head were turning.
Yep.
Squidward knew where this was going.
Are you suggesting we adopt a kid?
Would it be the worst thing in the world?
SpongeBob asked.
I guess not.
Squidward hadn't really considered the adoption route, but they did have a steady stream of income, and SpongeBob seemed dedicated to wanting to raise a child.
So, is that a yes to adoption?
SpongeBob fluttered his eyelashes.
It's not a no,
Squidward laughed.
How about we ask Claire what she thinks? She's part of the family too, and deserves a say in it.
You're right, Squiddy.
SpongeBob smiled.
You're a good dad, you know that?
So are you.
Squidward gave his partner another squeeze. Before their conversation could continue, they heard the thundering footsteps of their daughter running down the hall. Within seconds, their bedroom door flew open, and little Claire took a leap into the bed, landing on SpongeBob and Squidward.
Oof!
SpongeBob exclaimed as his daughter landed on him.
Morning, Claire Bear. Did you sleep okay?
Yes, Daddy.
Claire said as she wormed her way in between SpongeBob and Squidward.
What were you and Dad talking about? I heard the word baby.
Claire, Squidward tried to take a stern tone, were you spying on us?
Yes, Dad.
Claire wasn't capable of lying to her parents, and Squidward knew it.
We've talked about this,
Squidward continued.
You can't do that. It's an invasion of privacy.
Evasion?
Claire looked confused.
What does that mean?
It means,
Squidward was trying to find the best way to explain it.
What Dad means to say,
SpongeBob butted in.
imagine if you were talking about a secret with your friend and someone else was spying on you. You wouldn't like that, would you? A secret is a secret, right? Oh, I understand.
Claire replied, and Squidward breathed a sigh of relief, thankful SpongeBob had interjected.
But since I know, can I ask about the baby?
go on.
Squidward wasn't planning on having this discussion right now, but figured it would happen sooner or later.
Okay, Claire.
SpongeBob sat up.
Your dad and I are talking about possibly making our family bigger, and we want to give you a say in it. It wouldn't be like when we had you, though. Instead, we'd be adopting another child that would be either your brother or sister. Adopting?
Claire didn't know what that meant.
I'll take this one.
Squidward didn't want SpongeBob to confuse their daughter any more than she already was.
Claire, it means they wouldn't be your biological, your actual brother or sister, but would still very much be a part of this family. They would have our same last name, live with us, and be loved by us all the same. They might look a little different than you too, but they would still be your sibling, and you'd be their big sister even if they didn't grow inside Daddy.
I don't understand.
Claire huffed.
It's like this.
SpongeBob spoke up.
You know Gary? He's a snail, and I'm not his daddy. But but how he's very much a part of this family? It's like that. But the new kiddo wouldn't be a snail and wouldn't be a pet. They'd be a brother or sister to you and a son or daughter to your dad and I. Does that make sense, sweetheart?
I think so, Claire replied.
So do we get to go to the baby store?
You and your daddy.
Squidward laughed.
No, Claire Bear. There's a big process and it might take up to a year. We have to work with an organization to help us find the right fit for our family.
Oh,
Claire giggled.
so I get to pick then? Not exactly, honey.
SpongeBob held his daughter's hand.
We just want to know if you'd like a brother or sister. We want to let you have input on it and let us know what you think. It doesn't have to be right now, and you can take all the time you want to think about it. Just remember, it's a big deal and will change everything about our family. Some of it will be good, some of it will be bad. You can ask any questions to help you decide, too. Can they be a big brother or sister?
Claire asked.
Well,
Squidward hadn't thought about that. It wasn't the worst idea, since it meant they wouldn't be having to go through the whole process of a baby. There wouldn't be any diaper changes, sleepless nights, or countless bottles at all hours. However, on the flip side, SpongeBob really did want that experience again.
Of course, sweetie.
SpongeBob broke Squidward's train of thought.
If we find the right fit for our family, it doesn't matter if they're older. I'd like a baby. But at the end of the day, it's about giving someone a family that doesn't have one. You mean there are kids out there without a family?
Claire said like she was about to cry.
That's sad, Daddy. It is, Claire Bear.
SpongeBob sounded like he was about to cry as well.
But that's why we want to adopt. Okay, Daddy.
Claire sniffled.
I would like a brother or sister. I want to give someone a family. You're such a sweet little girl.
SpongeBob choked back some tears and hugged his daughter.
Now how about some breakfast?
pancakes!
Claire and Squidward both said in unison, then broke out in a giggle. Chapter 3. Mr. Squidward, have a moment? After their discussion with Claire, Squidward and Spongebob started seriously discussing the possibility of adopting another addition to their family. The issue was that neither of them really knew where to go to even start the process. That is until Squidward let something slip at work one day.
Mr. Squidward,
Squenny said as she poked her head into his office.
what can I do for you?
Squidward said as he sat down some paperwork.
I know you said the other day that you and Mr. SpongeBob were looking to adopt a child.
She began.
Shit!
Squidward quickly covered his mouth.
I mean, fuck! Damn it! I mean, sorry. I didn't mean to swear. Also, I didn't think anyone caught that. It's supposed to be a secret. It's okay, Mr. Squidward,
Squenny chuckled.
I've heard worse at home, and I figured it was a secret. That's why I'm coming to you in your office.
Thank you, Squidward breathed a sigh of relief.
So what about adoption then? You don't have some mysterious child you're trying to give me, do you? Barnacles, no!
Squenny put her tentacles over her mouth as she giggled.
No, I just wanted to say that my mom works for an adoption agency that helps parents out. I could give you her number if you want to talk to someone. I know the whole process is a bit involved. Also, if you want to know about it from a kid's perspective, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, that would be fantastic! Squidward suddenly processed what Squenny had said to him.
So, you're adopted then? Sure am,
Squenny smiled.
When you see my mom, you'll understand. I mean, how many octopuses do you know with the last name of Rock Reef?
True. Squidward was now putting the pieces together.
Well, that at least gives me hope. You're a good kid and turned out just fine. I'm sure it wasn't totally easy for you, though. Yes and no,
Squenny said.
My parents loved me and adopted me when I was only a few months old. I never really knew any different. The hard part comes when you get older and kids start noticing you don't look like your parents. You know, how some kids are. They're, not very nice. Yeah, some kids are shitheads.
Squidward grabbed his mouth again.
Sorry, but that does make sense. If you don't mind me asking, though, do you know why you were given up for adoption? That's out of character for an octopus. No, I don't mind,
Squenny said.
I don't really know, honestly. I never knew my birth mom, and I don't have a strong desire to seek her out either. My adoptive parents are my parents, even if they're not biologically so. They raised me, loved me, taught me, and helped shape me into the cephalopod I am today. And you're a wonderful cephalopod, too, Squidward smiled. If your mom is at least half as nice and caring as you are, then I think Spongebob and I will be in good hands. Oh, you're in for a treat,
Squenny squealed.
She's actually nicer! That's good to hear.
Squidward felt a sense of calm wash over him.
Okay, I'll give her a call then. Thank you so much for your help. Was there anything else? Well, there is one thing.
Squenny turned red.
Can I leave a little early tonight? I have a date. Of course.
Squidward laughed. He never minded an employee coming to him with a request like this. He was young once and knew what it was like trying to juggle school, a job, a family life, and trying to hold down a relationship.
Thank you,
Squenny beamed.
I'll skip my lunch if that's okay. So I work my hours. Deal,
Squidward replied and picked up his phone to text SpongeBob the good news. Chapter 4. From Painful Memories to Happy Beginnings.
Are you okay, SpongeBob?
Squidward looked at his partner.
You keep squirming around like you got jellyfish in your pants. I'm just nervous,
SpongeBob said as he started to chew on his hand.
What if she thinks we're unfit to be parents? What if she doesn't like our kind of relationship? What if... Sponge, stop it.
Squidward placed a tentacle on his partner's shoulder.
I've already talked to Tina, and she's a delight. She can't wait to work with us to find the perfect addition to our family. I know, you told me.
SpongeBob had a nervous laugh.
I'm still scared, though. Don't be.
Squidward squeezed the sponge to continue to comfort him. Moments later, the doorbell rang and Squidward stood up to go answer it as Claire came running up to his side, jumping up and down with excitement. "Mr. Squidward?" a large, imposing tuna said with a jovial voice. "Of course, you're Mr. Squidward. Squenny has told me all about you. Oh my goodness, is this Claire? Isn't she just the cutest little thing in the ocean?"
Hi, Tina.
Squidward held out a tentacle to shake her fin.
Say hi to Mrs. Rockreef, Claire.
Hi, Mrs. Rockreef!
Claire shouted.
Are you here to help me get a brother or sister?
I am, sweetheart. Tina knelt down to get on Claire's level. Are you ready to be a sister? It's a big job, but you seem up to the task. I am. Claire started shrieking while jumping up and down.
Okay, Claire Bear, Squidward laughed. As you can tell, she's excited.
Well, that's wonderful, Tina replied. You'd be surprised how many kids hate the idea of having a brother or sister, but Claire seems like she has a big heart.
She gets that from her daddy.
Squidward gave his daughter a hug.
Speaking of her daddy, Spongebob, are you coming?
Sorry, Squiddy.
Spongebob let out another nervous chuckle and got off the couch.
Hi, Mrs. Rockreef. I'm Spongebob, Squidward's husband and Claire's daddy.
Nice to meet you, Spongebob. Tina flashed a smile. Squidward here tells me that adoption route was your idea. Is that right?
Yes, Mrs. Rockreef.
Spongebob rocked uneasy on his feet. Please call me Tina. The tuna let out a joyous laugh. Mrs. Rockreef is my mother-in-law.
Right.
Spongebob looked around, trying to shake off his nerves.
But yes, the adoption route was my idea, but we decided on it as a family, even giving Claire a say in it.
Let's continue this conversation in the living room.
Squidward gestured towards the chairs.
Claire, can you please go get the iced tea? Remember, 2 hands, missy.
And Claire went off to the kitchen to grab the pitcher of iced tea. The 3 adults sat down in the living room. Spongebob was still acting weird, but seemed to be calming down a little bit. Squidward couldn't understand why Spongebob was so on edge and hoped that his partner wasn't getting cold feet about the whole adoption thing. So, if you don't mind me asking, Tina said, pulling out a notebook, what made you 2 decide to adopt? I assume Claire is your biological child, correct?
Well, you see...
Spongebob was fiddling with his hands and looking at the ground.
It's just that, can you excuse me for a second?
As SpongeBob stood up and walked towards the kitchen, it finally hit Squidward why his partner was acting so odd. It never occurred to him that SpongeBob was afraid of the very question that Tina had opened with. Of course, the sponge didn't want to relive all the tragedy that had inundated him over the past couple of years, and Squidward felt horrible for not understanding that.
Excuse me, Tina,
Squidward said, standing up.
I'm gonna go see what's going on.
Can I talk to Mrs. Rockreef?
Claire's eyes lit up at the prospect. Of course you can, sweetheart. Tina smiled and motioned for the girl to come sit by her. Squidward made his way into the kitchen, expecting to find SpongeBob, but his partner was nowhere to be found, which was odd even for him. Then Squidward heard it, a faint sniffling sound coming from one of the cupboards, and walked over to it before kneeling down to open the door. The scene that greeted Squidward nearly shattered all of his hearts at once. Curled up in a little ball was a sobbing SpongeBob who had managed to tuck himself away in an incredibly small space.
Sponge.
Squidward reached a tentacle inside to try and comfort his partner.
Sponge, please come out and talk to me. I think I know what's going on, and I understand.
With a clang of pots and pans, SpongeBob unrolled himself and flopped out of the cupboard with tears soaking his red and puffy cheeks.
Do you?
SpongeBob's pitiful voice squealed.
You don't want to relive the past events that led to adoption, do you?
Squidward figured he'd get right to the point.
I'm sorry. I knew it might come up, but I didn't think it would be the very first question.
I don't want to tell her, Squiddy.
Spongebob croaked.
It hurts just too gosh darn bad. Excuse my language. I know, my love,
Squidward said, opting not to give his partner a loving jab at his lame excuse for swearing.
Look, I tell you what. Why don't you make us some snacks, and I'll tell her. When you're ready to come out and join us, okay?
Okay, Squiddy. SpongeBob wiped at his eyes.
I love you, and I want to do this, you know that, right? I love you too, Squidward smiled. And yes, I know.
With a deep breath, Squidward stood back up and made his way back into the living room. He figured he'd send Claire into the kitchen after a few minutes to help SpongeBob and get him focused again. Is everything okay? Tina asked.
Yes,
Squidward took a seat.
So did you and Claire have a nice chat?
She's such a beautiful, wonderful little girl. Tina gave Claire a warm smile. She's certainly ready to be a sister, that's for sure. She tells me she wants an older brother or sister. Is that something you've talked about as a family?
It is.
Squidward cleared his throat.
It's something we're open to if we find the right fit. Most of all, we just want to give someone a loving home, regardless of their age. Whether they're older or younger than Claire doesn't really matter.
Splendid! Tina clasped her fins together. That certainly opens up more options for sure. Are you sure SpongeBob is okay? He ran off pretty quick.
Claire, honey,
Squidward looked at his daughter.
can you please go help Daddy with the snacks?
With a nod, Claire bolted to the kitchen, and once she was out of earshot, Squidward let out a big sigh.
Yes and no,
The octopus began.
The reason we're looking at adoption is that, well, SpongeBob had a miscarriage before, and it really affected his mental state. I know he wants another child, but he doesn't want to get pregnant again. Also, remember that plane crash a few years ago? We were on that plane, and, well, SpongeBob was hurt pretty bad, which probably led to the miscarriage. He doesn't like to talk about it, and when you asked that question, the memories came flooding back.
Oh my heavens! Tina gasped. I had no idea. I'm so sorry.
It's fine, really.
Squidward knew there was no way she could have known.
No one really knows, and it's not really something we talk about, as you can probably imagine. But he'll be okay. SpongeBob always bounces back quickly.
Before SpongeBob comes back, can I ask another sensitive question? Tina said hesitantly.
You want to know how SpongeBob was able to get pregnant?
Squidward could almost read her mind. Yes. How did you? Tina's face was one of shock and curiosity.
Don't worry,
Squidward chuckled to ease the tension.
it comes up more than you think. When we were first getting together, I didn't really know much about sponge anatomy, and come to find out, they're hermaphrodites. So imagine my surprise when I thought he was, well, male, but came to me and told me he was pregnant. It floored me, and initially I was confused and scared. But honestly, Claire is the best thing to ever happen to me. I don't want to say she was a mistake, because Neptune knows she wasn't. But she's definitely the best unplanned surprise I've ever received.
Well, the ocean is a mysterious place, isn't it? Tina replied. Well, that all does make a bit of sense, and with that out of the way, we can focus on happier questions. The two of them talked for several more minutes before SpongeBob and Claire returned carrying far too much food for the four of them to eat. There were sandwiches, chips, pretzels, popcorn, and numerous types of cookies.
We didn't know what everyone wanted.
SpongeBob laughed.
Claire said it was better to have too much than not enough.
Well, she certainly got that right. Tina laughed, taking a plate from Claire and selecting a couple of cookies. So now tell me, what is your family like? I want to get a sense of what might fit the best for you. I don't want to play someone who's overly active, if that's not the kind of family you are.
Well, I do most of the work at the Krusty Krab, Squidward began, and SpongeBob does most of the work here at the house. along with taking on most of the responsibilities with Claire. Other than that, I'd say we're pretty average. We make an effort to cook dinner together every night and do at least one family activity before bed. On the weekends, we just do whatever comes up and try not to plan too much. Anything else, SpongeBob?
No, I think that's it.
SpongeBob said with a mouthful of sandwich. Well, that's wonderful. Tina scribbled something down in her notebook. You'd be surprised at how many families don't make an effort to do things together. Even spending an hour together leaves a huge impact on a child's life. SpongeBob sat quietly on the couch, lost in thought. He never really considered himself an all-star parent. He knew he had flaws and often felt like he was failing Claire. But hearing this, from a trained profession no less, was leaving him with a warm feeling deep inside. The group chatted for another 2 hours as Tina got to know the family as best she could. By the time they were finished, the tuna had written nearly 50 pages of notes and was very pleased with her visit. She knew it would be tough to find a good fit for the family too. Not because there was something wrong with Squidward and SpongeBob, but because the family was just so wholesome. You know, Tina said as she was packing up her bag, it's not every day I get to work with a family that's, how should I put this, cohesive, maybe. It seems like many of the clients that give me a call just want a child and have zero idea what they're getting into. It's honestly very refreshing to work with such wonderful creatures.
Thank you very much, Tina.
SpongeBob smiled.
So, do you have any ideas for someone for us to adopt?
I'm glad you're so eager, Tina chuckled. To tell the truth, it might be a little difficult. We have hundreds of children that would work well here, but I need to review their files and narrow down the list.
Hundreds?
SpongeBob's eyes sparked at the thought.
I know what you're thinking, and no.
Squidward could almost read his partner's mind.
As much as I'd love to give every kid a family, there's no way we can take care of hundreds of them.
Oh, I know.
SpongeBob flashed a toothy grin.
Just toying with you, Squiddy.
All three had another good laugh, and Tina bid the family goodbye before returning to her boat. She was certainly going to have her work cut out for her, but she was happy that such an amazing family was willing to take on an adopted child. The end of part 10. Oh man, this is getting a little too wholesome for a YouTube channel called Regretful Reads, but Sanders Edge, I will continue reading because I know there's a spin-off. Anyway, if you'd like to support me or Sanders Edge, find him on Twitter. He's got Sanders Edge, all just like that. You can support the YouTube channel, patreon.com/regretfulreads, or become a YouTube member. I am sweating in a tiny closet right now, so I'm going to go drink some water. This was kind of a long one. I'll see you next time. Take care. The content you are about to watch is not intended for children. Viewer discretion advised. Well,
See you next time.